Welcome into the Train with the Best podcast. We are back. I'm Craig Hoffman, and typically we do a year-end mailbag. Chris and I have done it the last couple of years. By the way, Chris is doing real well and is excited to get back to the pod probably at the start of February. So we have another month of guest hosts, and with that year-end mailbag, we were all set to have Natalie Kollars, who is a performance specialist at EXOS. She's been on the pod before as well to talk about her amazing food blog. As she's a chef and she makes delicious things. Chef Nat's Kitchen. You can check that out on her Instagram or just go straight to chefnatskitchen.com. And anyway, the point is that Rachel and I got the Rona. So COVID hit us and we had to delay the mailbag episode. But Nat has been a saint and patiently waiting. And now, as she's back refreshed off of her vacation out in Colorado, we are ready to do this. So Nat, welcome finally to the much overdue year-end/year start mailbag podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm excited to be here. We've got some really fun questions to answer, I think, today. So I think it should be fun.
Shout out to your Instagram followers who hooked us up with some phenomenal questions. If you want Nat on Instagram, it's at Natalie Kollars. So let's just dive right in. First question.
Let's do it.
What do you focus on training in young athletes, and is age a limiting factor for style of training?
Yeah, I think for youth athletes, the biggest thing to keep in mind is that we, like anyone, but probably more importantly for them, need to keep it really fun and engaging. A lot of competition, game-based training is likely going to be very beneficial for them. I try to use analogies that they can relate to. That is probably getting increasingly harder as I get older because I feel like I'm disconnected to that now.
Download TikTok now.
Yeah, exactly. Does this have to be a 10-second clip? But yeah, finding analogies and stories and things that are relatable to them when teaching them anything in training is really important. Playing games with them, keeping it light and fun, first and foremost. And then although we know that speed and change of direction and flexibility and all those types of things are really advantageous to train at a young age in terms of like long-term athlete development, they're often not strong enough yet to really see a huge change in some of those qualities if we don't spend an adequate time focusing on strength in the weight room or out on the field. I mean, it doesn't need to be heavy weights by any means at that age. But having an impact on their strength qualities or strength ability likely has the biggest carryover or may move the needle the most for them. So whether it's body weight or a very light implement, a weight vest, something like that, if you can groove movement patterns, use isometrics and eccentrics, teach them to control their own body weight from a strength standpoint, alongside the speed and agility and change of direction, you'll likely, see the most change and move the needle the most.
Yeah, I love that. I think the movement competency and like the movement efficiency is the best. Like that's your obvious biggest chance, right? Because you get these kids that are like just floppy everywhere and they have no body control.
Yes.
So if you can teach them body control, that's step one. And then step two, you don't need a lot of stimulus because they've never had any in their life. So if you put
Correct.
that super light stimulus, or like you said, the control element, like the stimulus can be a slow eccentric rep or a slow concentric rep where they really have to focus on the technicalities of it. But if you can make it a competition, like you can do slow eccentrics and say last one down's a rotten egg. And, all of a sudden, I don't know. I felt like when I just said that, I was 152 years old. Last one down's a rotten egg.
This is what I mean. This is what I mean. The analogies and the relatability.
Yeah, like this. Does anyone say that anymore? I don't know. But
yeah, no.
I don't know. But the point is, if you make it fun and competitive and you use the stimulus that you need, which isn't going to be much, you can make a huge effective or have a huge effectiveness on kids for sure. The other thing too that I think about with anybody that's a sport athlete with a younger training age is like, how do you train the decision-making elements? And that's obviously really easy to gamify and can be really effective too. It's just like little things on drilling in good, like really honestly, almost subconsciously drilling in good habits, right? Like I think of soccer players all the time, and when I do speed and agility work with them, and if they're going to do certain steps, I'm like, all right, make sure you check your shoulder first. Like, because if you ever go to a soccer practice, you hear coaches in passing boxes in every freaking drill that they do, like, hey, check your shoulder, check your shoulder, check your shoulder at the professional level. So if you hear that at the professional level and you can get a kid who's 8 to start developing that habit, like if there's little technical things that you know about the sport that you can add in, and groove good patterns beyond just like, that's a good squat pattern, that could probably be really helpful for them in the long term as well.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Yeah. Keeping them engaged and having fun with them, and introducing them to a positive training environment is so important. Along with, everything that you just mentioned, for sure.
All right. Next one. As a former pro athlete, should training and fueling in post-career look the same? I'll take a shot at this one first. No, because the demands on your body to perform at a hyper elite level, the best of the best as a pro athlete, I as an everyday non-pro athlete don't run into those ever. So the fuel that you need, the strength that you need, all that kind of stuff. And it's a chance to also round out your, like, I would look at it honestly as an opportunity to be like, I don't have to be so singularly focused on being the best wide receiver, linebacker, center forward, swimmer, whatever is possible. And I can just be a healthy, moving human being, and maybe some sacrifices that you've had to make, you don't have to make those anymore. I would honestly, that's how I would look at it, as an opportunity to be like, sweet, I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that the shift into longevity and general health is probably a welcomed change for so many of them. I think that it's important to stay active with something that they enjoy, something that's different that they enjoy, so that they don't get out of the routine of being active. You do unfortunately see those athletes that they want the change, and then instead of staying active and doing something post career, they go too far the other way and are sedentary for a while, and then it becomes harder for them to come back. But welcoming a new activity, something that maybe is still competitive, but picking 100%. Up a new skill, I think is such an important transition for them, for sure.
We talked to Nick Simmons about this a couple of podcasts ago. He's gone from being an 800-meter runner, like, how fast can I run 2 laps around the track, to like, he does CrossFit now. And like, is CrossFit my favorite thing? No, but it's something that scratches his competitive itch and that keeps him moving and all that kind of stuff. A lot of Absolutely. Like sprint athletes, all of a sudden they're like, I'm going to try marathons or half marathons or distance runners. Like, if you can find a new goal-oriented task, that often does scratch an itch that a lot of athletes have. But the need to do that at that elite of a level is just not going to exist in your day-to-day life. There are other things that are going to exist, but not that. All right, next question. I thought this was an interesting one. As 2 trainers that have both worked with a lot of younger athletes, what are traits that you consistently see in elite athletes from junior to pro?
Yeah. Do you want me to start with this one?
Yeah, I'll let you stab at this one first.
Yeah. I think the biggest difference that I see, or not the difference, I guess, but the traits that I consistently see are that they just own all aspects of the process. Whether it's showing up early, how they approach their recovery, how they approach training, the questions that they ask, they want to know the why behind everything. They have a mentality of, what can I do? How can I do more, within reason, hopefully, for the most part, but
right. And sometimes it's our job to be like, nothing, you can chill out.
Totally. But for the most part, it's like they want more, rather than the like, can I do less mentality. I think that they're the hungriest athletes, and they're the athletes that just want to be the best at everything. Like, if there is a competition, they want to win, even if it has nothing to do with their sport. If it's like a meaningless, I do a competition, kind of like an activation competition thing at the beginning of some sessions, just in a bear crawl position, partnered up with yoga blocks on their backs. And like, if you and I are partners, I'm trying to keep my yoga block on while I knock yours off. And
I'd be so bad at that. You'd be like, you'd look at me and my block would fall off. Be like, oh man, I lost.
Oh, you gotta give yourself
I gotta want it more. That's why I'm not an elite athlete. That's why I had such an easy time answering the last question. Craig.
Yeah, you gotta want to win. But yeah, obviously doesn't look like anyone's sport. I don't think. I mean, gosh, maybe closest to wrestling for goodness sakes. But
Yeah.
the best athletes, like they want to win that. If it's a minivan activation, like minivan grab, and it's partnered up or they're partnered up, they want to win. They just have that elite mentality in all aspects of what they do. They want to eat right. Um, they want to show up early. They want to do more. They ask the right questions. They're passionate about the little things. I think that's another big one too.
Yeah, I do think that you get into issue like that could be an entire podcast in itself on like getting into issues of like burnout and some of the things that are side effects of some of those traits. Learning balance is really important. That's how you get all the way up to the pro level. But I mean, even a lot of young professionals are in the kind of that grind mode. They don't have families. They're just they actually have the ability to focus once they're out of school, especially on the singular task. The other thing that I'll say, the other trait that I see is like they're the smartest athletes. And I think of not only my career as a trainer here, but like my career as a sports reporter. The best players are the smartest players. LeBron James is a physical freak who is 6'9" and 240 or 60 or at times in his career 80 pounds. It runs a 4.4 and has a 40+ inch vertical and like is the most like freaky physical specimen of all time. But that in itself would not make him what he's been as a basketball player. He is the smartest guy on the floor, and every single guy he's played with or against will tell you that he's the smartest guy on the floor. Your Peyton Mannings, your Tom Brady's at the quarterback position, a lot of your Ray Lewis's and guys like that at the linebacker position, like the best players at every position in every sport that are decision-making sports anyway, are the smartest players because if you can make up for a lack of physical traits with decision-making. You can make up for a lack of decision making with physical traits if you're truly, truly elite. Like there are guys that are just like 4.25 fast and they're not that intellectually gifted on the field, and they'll survive. They'll be okay. But the way that you're the most elite, the LeBron James, the Michael Jordan, the pick your athlete is you're both. And so that is the trait that if you can train decision-making, you can have that thirst for knowledge about your sport and understanding schemes and X's and O's and all that kind of stuff. And also like being a good teammate and just all that stuff plays into it. The smartest players are the ones that ultimately are going to be the super elites on top of having elite physical traits. All right.
I agree.
I'll tackle this one first. Do you recommend full body or split workouts? And my answer, ready for this, is yes. It just depends on what your goals are. Like I've been doing a lot of full body. I think it depends on like how often you're training. It depends on what you're like. Are you in it for hypertrophy? Are you in it for max strength? Are you in it just to move and feel good? Are you okay with being really sore? Are you definitely not wanting to be sore? Like there's just too many factors to this is why, like, at the end of the day, we are personal trainers or, group trainers. Like, we're able to give goals based off or give workout recommendations based off individual goals. And to try to answer this on a macro level, again, is like an entire podcast length discussion of what's best for each particular scenario. But what about this? What about that? So it just depends on your goals.
Yep. Agree. I would say in general, if you're fairly new to training, more of a total body, if you're in a max strength phase, gosh, your body's going to definitely want the time off after not see a lower body lift again for a little while. So probably, lower upper. So yeah, agree with everything that you said. It, like everything in our field, it depends.
Right. There's a lot of options, which is good. Like, I mean, even right now, clients that I have on more like split workouts, they were out for Christmas or out for the holidays or whatever. And it's like, hey, let's do a full body week to reacclimate yourself so that you don't hate me for the next 4 days. Like there's even places within a full body program for split workouts. There's places in split workouts for full body. Like you gotta have the thing I always try to tell when I'm in mentoring mode or podcast host mode or whatever is like, is it the right workout for the right athlete on the right day? And so that's all going to be part of their larger program, but there's places for both for sure. I love this question. I'll let you go first on this one. From a coaching perspective, what is the one thing you know now but didn't 5 years ago?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Gosh, the fact that it says what is one thing, I feel like thankfully, through working with so many great coaches and athletes and trying to learn from as many people as I can, I thankfully know a lot now that I didn't know then. Sometimes I look back at what I did and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Same.
Yes. I'd say, so a few things. Number one, that less is more. At EXOS, we have an amazing training system. There's 8 components to it. One thing that I always have admired about EXOS and still do today is that we are so organized and systematized. Everything has a place within each of the components, and it helps us teach interns, which I'm actually just in the process of onboarding our new interns this week, which is always so fun. Yes, but whether it's teaching it to a new intern or going through a checklist for myself while programming for an athlete or athletes, it's so nice to have that system in place. That being said, as a younger coach, I used to try to fit everything or nearly everything into majority of my sessions. And I basically just realized, like, this is a toolbox that you use. You don't need to put, everything into one session. Let's look at the week. Let's look at the phase and figure out which of those puzzle pieces best fit or best get you to your goal. And then within that, there's so much more carryover of athletic qualities than I originally thought or I originally saw. So even during a max strength phase, or if you have some max strength in your phase, if you're doing more of a conjugate or undulating or something like that, you're still going to see some hypertrophic benefits or some, other qualities if the fueling is right and things like that. So even though you're working on maybe max strength as your main goal, you're going to see development in other areas. There's carryover from med ball to sprinting that I didn't necessarily connect the dots as early as I probably should have,
Right.
And so
I cannot tell you how often I do something and I'm like, yeah, this connects to this. And it's like, I figured that out 14 seconds earlier as someone was doing the exercise. I'm like, I knew this was important and I thought I was doing this, but I didn't realize it was also doing that. That's cool. I'm going to sound really smart when I tell them this thing that I just figured out because I just connected the dots 22 seconds ago.
Right. And then always asking yourself too, I ask myself this way more often than I used to of, like, you need to remember to keep the main thing. Like, is the stimulus that I'm providing creating the adaptation that I'm setting out to create, and sometimes you can sway too far from that. And you truly do need to, again, ask yourself, like, okay, what is the main goal? What is the adaptation? And does this stimulus best achieve that? Yeah, I think that's another one for sure.
Yeah, keep the main thing. The main thing is, like, legitimately when Chris and I do our mentoring stuff and like we go out and, we did our corporate program with Solid Core and we're working on some other stuff. And like, that is literally one of like the main title slides in that exact phrasing. 100% is a huge thing that I knew it all along, but I think the ways I communicate it now are so much more clear. And I think that is been essential to being successful. I think, the less is more part to me is also one that I like is always kind of my go-to in this type of answer, or this type of question. Because I think as a trainer, you like only know so much when you start and you do super basic stuff and you're focused on like different planes of motion and a little bit of variation in rep ranges and things like that. And then you learn a bunch of new stuff as you do continuing education and you learn cool tricks and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, you always have that recency bias of like, I got to do this thing I just learned. It's so cool. And then the longer you get into it, the more you wind up back at the stuff that you started with and you just know how to use it so much better. And yet, and to the point that sometimes I'm like, am I creative enough? Do I give my clients enough stuff? Like, are they going to stay stimulated? But my client retention rate's really high. So I'm probably okay. Like, you don't have to do crazy shit to keep clients engaged. Like, if you do the basics and they see the growth in the areas that they want to get stronger, bigger, faster, whatever that goal that they've set out is, you're going to keep your clients. They're going to be happy. Everybody's in a great spot. So I think those are definitely the ones that I go to, is like less is more. And the other thing too with less is more, like even within sessions, like I put such a ridiculous quality or emphasis on quality over quantity. I think there's a benefit to just like, I'm gonna throw the kitchen sink at him some days. And I think a lot of trainers like get some level of results because they do that. And I'm like, yeah, of course you got whatever thing, like you did 1,000 lunges, and like, how do you feel after? And there's damage that's being done that's going to eventually come back to bite you in the long term. And I actually really learned this when I went down to Tampa, probably 2017, 2018, and shadowed a couple sessions that our friend Yo Murphy did down there, and saw with legit like professional athletes, like MLB. He had an NFL guy and an MLB guy going in 2 different sessions at once. It was actually one of the craziest things I've ever seen. It was so impressive. But like,
awesome.
They almost like, I think the MLB guy eventually touched some weights in the session, but the NFL guy was like all footwork, all movement quality, all stability. And I'm like, oh, if he can be an NFL athlete and have that little, again, stimulus, I guess, in terms of like weights, that should tell me something. And of course, the way I'm going to train a professional athlete who's competent at an NFL level versus a Gen Pop person is very different. But you don't need a million reps. You don't need to just do everything. Do the stuff that you do really, really well. And I think I have simplified and scaled back over the years, and my programming looks in ways similar that it did 5 years ago, but the thought that goes into that and the way it's executed is very different.
Right. Yep. I agree with everything that you just said. And I think that simplicity and consistency are king, like being as simple and, thoughtful, not just simple for the sake of being simple,
right.
But again, coming back to, is this stimulus achieving the adaptation that I'm trying to achieve? And if it is, and it's simple, and even if you've been doing it, for quite a while, just because you've been back squatting doesn't mean you can't continue to back squat if it's working. So
100%. And by the way, their back squat will get better. So that's nice.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, look, I can squat more now. The Train with the Best podcast is brought to you by Super Coffee. And Super Coffee is a part of my routine every single day, whether I'm running out the door quickly and got to just grab a ready to drink, regular old original Super Coffee, or whether I'm doing what I've been doing lately, where I've had a few more free mornings and I just sit down. I use my little pour over situation, put some grounds in, and make myself a nice, fresh, hot cup of coffee in the morning. Those grounds, Super Coffee grounds. And by the way, how do I flavor my coffee? Super creamer. So no matter how I start my day, Super Coffee is always a part of it, which means I need a steady supply, which is why I have a subscription order going at drinksupercoffee.com. Do you know you could save up to 30%? 30% on Super Coffee. So your coffee is a part of your day. You need that steady supply. You might as well get it. And especially if it's Super Coffee, it's healthy and it's nutritious. It's all of these things. Get it at a discount. If you want to give it a shot, go to drinksupercoffee.com. Use the code TRAINWITHTHEBEST. Get 25% off your first order. If you like it, then go back to drinksupercoffee.com. Sign up for that subscription. It's up to 30% off their New Year subscriber promotion. It's right now at drinksupercoffee.com. The code is TRAINWITHTHEBEST. All right, continuing on, and I'm pretty excited about this. Into Chef Nat's kitchen we go.
Here we go.
How do you get lots of protein when you don't like to cook?
Yeah, such a good question, and something that I think people may struggle with from a nutrition or fueling standpoint the most. Carbohydrates are easy to get, right? You don't have to cook them for the most part.
Yeah, go take a piece of bread and shove it in your
crackers.
mouth.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas protein takes a little bit more planning and cooking likely. And they're harder to get when you're just like out, you can't just pull up to, I don't know, hopefully you're not getting your food from a gas station unless you absolutely have to, but it's just harder to get. Anyways, to answer the question, I love the slow cooker. I'm a big fan of making a big batch of shredded chicken in there. You literally just put in chicken breast, water or broth, and then some seasonings. Let it cook, shred it with 2 forks, and you can put it in anything, salads, sandwiches. eat it on its own, put it in a stir fry, whatever it may be. My other new, well, maybe not new now, I think I've used it every day since I've gotten it, is the air fryer.
Oh, the air fryer is the best. It's
yes,
so good.
right? It's so good. It could not be easier. I mean, I'll put a salmon fillet in there with just olive oil, salt, and pepper, and it's done in 7 minutes. Like, it's just the craziest thing. No prep time, no heating it up. You literally just put it in there and it's done. Speaking of salmon, another one I love, smoked salmon. I know people may not be a fish, fan of fish, but if you are, smoked salmon, it's already cooked, easy to take on the go with you. Sushi grade seafood. So whether it's salmon or ahi tuna or whatever it may be, can go in a poke bowl or a salad. It's always nice to just take out steps and not have to like monitor something. And so if something doesn't have to be cooked, I feel like that's so easy as well. Yeah, those are my go-tos, honestly, in addition to like, the beef jerkies and canned tuna and whatever it may be, but something that's a little bit more fresh. Those are my go-tos. And then just as a reminder to all the listeners out there that peanut butter is not a source of protein.
Yes, there's protein in it. It is not going to be a good source of protein in terms of like, that's not the primary nutrient in it. I will
never forget. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I feel like this is a funny story. Insert funny story here.
Yes, right. The number of times I've heard people say, when I ask them about their protein intake, oh yeah, it's great. Perfect. That sounds good. What are your main sources of protein? And the first thing out of their mouth is nuts or peanut butter or whatever it may be. And I'm like, goodness, you honestly have to eat nearly 3,000 calories of peanut butter to get, not 3,000, that's probably an exaggeration, 1,500 calories of peanut butter to get any good amount of protein. And so, yeah, that's a whole other thing to get into. We don't need to dive too deep into nutrition today, but there's just a lot of misinformation out there still, unfortunately. So, yeah. Yes,
definitely.
PSA, peanut butter is not protein.
PSA, there's a bunch of great recipes at chefnatskitchen.com. And
all high in protein.
Yes, all high in protein. And what I actually genuinely appreciate about your site and like the way that you approach at least the food blogging that you do. I don't know if this is how you approach, but I think based off like your Instagram and like the behind the scenes that you give, like this is genuinely how you eat as well. Is like you do a lot of batch cooking, which is great. And like a lot of stuff that's like one pot. So it's, you cook it and then maybe you even stick the entire pot in the refrigerator afterwards. Like eat the first batch fresh. And then no, you don't like.
No, you cannot put a pot. Okay.
You can't, if you let it cool off. Yeah. No, you. No. Why not? We do it all the time.
You are the meme. Craig, you are the meme that the wife asks the husband to put something away in the fridge and it's the entire pot.
My future wife does this as well. So, because like it's already in the pot. It's already in the pot. Why would you create another piece of Tupperware? Okay, fine. Take it out of the pot, put it in Tupperware, go clean the pot, put the pot back. Fine. Whatever it is. But the point is that you make a lot of food at once and it's ready and then you just can reheat it in, whether it's in the microwave or if you want to put it back on the stove or depending on what it is, whatever. Air fryer is great to reheat stuff depending on what it is. And I think that's great. I'm just going to do this now as opposed to like doing an ad break and talking about, one of our sponsors that is, amongst other things, a protein company. But also if you're realistic and depending on your protein needs and you don't get enough in your diet for whatever reason. It's a little harder because you're vegan, vegetarian, and you're tired of soy or tofu or whatever. Just like you get full fast off of, your typical proteins. You prefer smaller, whatever it is. I'm not a dietitian, but we can answer the question, right?
Yep.
If you need to supplement, there are good options out there. And so like
absolutely
for us, we promote Momentous because that is an extremely high quality supplement that is tested at the absolute highest levels. And the biggest thing that I will always remember from when we had their founder, Matt Wan, on the podcast, like at this point, 100 episodes ago, when we started the partnership with them is he drove home really that the higher quality proteins are worth it to pay for because you're going to get more out of them. Because every, like, a scoop of protein that's 20 grams is not going to wind up being in your body the same. The absorption rates in the higher quality proteins, including Momentous, are significantly higher. In the same way that you put really good gas in a Ferrari, like you put the 93 in the Ferrari, like the Momentous is the 93. Like, there's a reason it will run better. You have less of the additives. It's built to absorb better. And so that is something that's always stuck with me, is we treat a lot of supplements, and this was Matt's exact phrasing, we treat a lot of supplements like commodities, and they're not. It's things we're putting in our body. Like, it's not a commodity. It's not a thing to get the best value for. It's a thing to, like, do well and intake well. So just like you might try to eat whole foods, you might try to not eat processed this, GMO that, whatever it is, the stylistic or dietary choices that you're making, those should apply. And even just like on a basic level, hey, we want to put high quality stuff in our body. Like, that goes across any diet. That should continue into your supplementation. And so we use Momentous. If you go to livemomentous.com, use the code TRAIN with the best 25, like, it's 25% off your first order and a subscription, 15% off all the refills. So, like, that's an ad that we do in every single podcast, except for this one, because I'm just going to count this as the ad and check the box. But it's also a product, like, literally I use Momentous protein every single day because it is really hard for the caloric needs that I have, which are fairly high when I'm being very active, to get the amount that I need. I have to eat a lot of chicken, steak, fish, whatever it is, and eggs, whatever it is. And it's just to get a nice little boost with a shake means I don't have to stuff myself with whole foods, and it just makes my day a little bit easier. So
yeah, and I think that what's so nice about protein powders like that is that you can take them on the go with you, right?
Yes.
They don't need to be refrigerated. You can put them in a blender bottle. You can add water, shake it up, and you're good to go. So it couldn't be more convenient, for sure.
All right. What inspired you to get into the strength and conditioning world, and then what advice do you have? I'll leave this part to you, especially for females looking to get into the field.
Yeah, for sure. What inspired me to get into the field? When I went to college, I knew I wanted to study kinesiology. Was super passionate about that, but had no idea what I wanted to do. I played college soccer, and in my after the first off season of off-season training with our strength and conditioning coach, the strength and conditioning coordinator, I owe so much to him. His name's Steve Lidstone, just an amazing guy. He just approached me and said, is this something that you think that you may be interested in doing as a career? And I was like, I honestly had not even thought about it. So I started to volunteer, and then eventually got a small part-time role in our strength and conditioning program. But what I began to realize is, number one, going through a proper periodized strength and conditioning program for the first time in college, because I had never done that before, I was just absolutely blown away and fascinated by what adaptations or changes your body can actually make. Like, I just remember thinking, oh my God, I can't believe that I was picking up 25-pound dumbbells and now I'm using 55s or whatever it is. And it's only 12 weeks later. You know how it is when you're completely untrained.
Right. Right.
And just being like, what? Like, I literally physically didn't think that this was possible. So just being fascinated with that. And then it brought together my competitive side, my athletic side, the part of me that loves people and is fascinated with communication and building relationships and things like that. And so all of those came together, and very quickly I was like, I truly think this is what I, meant to do. So that's how I initially got into it.
For me, it was out of necessity, because I had moved to DC. And by the way, if you want a fuller version of Nat's story, we did a podcast. God, it was like 2-3 years ago at this point, probably.
I know.
We were sitting in one of the offices at EXOS in Phoenix. You remember that?
Yes.
That was great.
It seems like ages ago.
I mean, it was 17 worlds ago, because it was pre-COVID. And for me, it was like when I was still on the beat doing football stuff. It was, God, that was a long time ago. But anyway, we went through like Nat's entire life story. So definitely check out that podcast. But for me, on like the initial steps, it was out of necessity. I moved up to DC in 2015 to be the beat reporter for what was at the time ESPN 980. That station restructured after my first season. So like I move up in August, and in January I get called into an office and get told that my job doesn't exist anymore. And then I was like, cool, that's great. And so I was job hunting in media and not finding anything. The job market was completely dry, and I was running out of money. So I had always had an interest. Like I grew up in a gym. My mom worked in a gym as on like the business side growing up. And I was talking to her, and she's like, well, what about working at the gym? You've always kind of had an interest, and now what else are you doing right now? And so I did. I talked to someone who became a mentor of mine, who's the fitness director at the gym that I went to. She's like, yeah, you have the communication side down clearly, so I just need to teach you how to train. That's the easy part. And so I got certified and started, and here we are, Jesus, 6.5 years later.
Wild.
And things are going all right. Or 5.5 years later, things are going all right. I met Chris along the way, which was super helpful. And here we are. I did not want to skip over that last part though, and I lied.
Oh, yes.
I wanted to let you go first for sure. Advice for females looking to get in the industry, but I do have something I want to add on the end, so I'll let you go first.
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, so many things. The first one is that, like anything and like anyone, you got to know your stuff. You got to be really good at what you do. Whether we like to recognize it or not, people are still in our industry, more so, I suppose, on the sports performance side rather than the fitness side, especially at a very elite level. Guys and maybe gals even are probably not expecting, social media has maybe changed this a little bit, but guys are not likely expecting to see a female coach. So if they come to EXOS, say, and they're an NFL athlete in the off season and they don't have social media, which I suppose is maybe a little bit unrealistic at this point, but and they walk up and they see me as the coach, if they don't know me, they're probably going to be somewhat surprised. Like people just in their mind still think, okay, sports performance coach, it's going to be a male. Not always, but quite often. So just not to let young female coaches let that deter them from it. If it's not what they expected, that's totally fine. I've always welcomed that challenge. So yeah, in addition to being good like anyone else, but you really got to know your stuff. Athletes can for sure sense right away whether there's any sort of fear or, whether you're unsure at all. And it's hard to come back from that. Further to that, demonstrations, owning all of your demos is probably one of the best ways to win over a group of athletes, especially a large group of male athletes. I'm sure you can agree with this, that if you can't demonstrate, a linear bound or some acceleration drill for them at the highest level, they're going to be like, what am I doing here? Like, why am I trying to learn how to sprint from someone that can't own this demo?
Right.
So
I've always
said
really that,
important.
I mean, he's a male, obviously, but like that's Chris's superpower. Like Chris is a super unassuming 5'9", like Filipino dude who's now almost 40 years old, or might have just turned 40 years old. Sorry, Chris, if I fucked that up. And like all of a sudden he like drops into a ready position, and everyone's like, "Whoa!" Like, okay, right. Yeah, there's the athlete that was a D1 athlete and used to run like a 4.4. So like, yeah, but even to the left, like I'm not that kind of athlete. If I own a demo, I see that, and definitely I think that probably is, unfortunately, because the patriarchy sucks, more true to your experience as well.
Yeah, and I think like anyone, that if an athlete can tell that you care about them as a human, not just as an athlete, but as a human, and if it comes from a genuine place, they don't care who you are. They don't care if you're male, female, if you're good at what you do, if you're invested in them, if you're genuine in your intent, if you care about them both on the field and off the field, or in the weight room and outside of the weight room, again, they don't care. If you can show them and prove to them, as quickly as possible that you have the abilities to lead them on the right path and to help them achieve their goals, they don't care. I would say that one thing that is, probably goes without saying, but you always have to conduct yourself in a professional manner. The way that you approach speaking to everyone, again, especially if it's, a female to a male, how you speak to them, how you conduct yourself, what you wear. They can also tell the ones that are there for the wrong reasons. And so, I pray to God that they're not, because I feel like those people just get in our way. But they can tell, you need to be there for the right reasons. You need to care about them. And overall, you just need to be really freaking good.
Yeah. I mean, I think that all of those things are on some level true across gender. Because of patriarchal, misogynistic, just ridiculous reasons, they are all enforced on females at a significantly higher degree. Like, if you're a dude, you better not be there for the wrong reasons. Like, you better not be there so you can say like I'm here to take selfies with professional athlete X. Like, those guys will hate you in 5 seconds, and they'll know that you're not there for the right reasons. But you'll probably get away with it longer if you're a dude. That's just, unfortunately, it sounded way too dismissive, but like, that is sadly and horrendously the society in which we live. So I would say these were the two things that I was thinking about, to echo, and really hopefully echoes everything you just said, is one, please continue down this path, because we need you. We need more perspectives. We need more diversity. We need female coaches, because there are female clients. I mean, it works on the other way too, on the client relationship. There are a lot of female clients that don't really want a male trainer, and I can't blame them. So like, we need people, highly qualified people of, male, female, non-binary, everything. We need everybody to make this industry better. And I would say, kind of, is the combativeness, or the way to combat a lot of the problems you described, is like, don't take anything a male coach wouldn't take. Right? Like, if a dude is creepy and he's your athlete, like, call him on it. Like, you're an adult, you're a human being. You should demand the respect of that. So obviously there are ways that you can handle those things that are more combative than others. But like, I would hope that you're working somewhere where, if you went to a superior or wherever and was like, hey, this client is a problem, that you would have the support from your institution. Or if you're an independent trainer, like, you get to make the call. And so like, don't be like, oh, I just have to take it. Don't be happy to be there. Like, if you got hired for a job, that's your job. Take it seriously. And that includes not tolerating anything that a male client or a male trainer wouldn't, because while I know that's easier for me to say, especially as a cisgendered straight white man, I also think that the way that the standard gets raised and that respect ultimately comes is demanding it and not tolerating anything less.
Absolutely.
And so I sincerely hope that as we continue to move forward, these things do progress over time, just not nearly as fast as they should, that all that stuff continues to get better, but it will get better, as Obama famously said, like, the moral arc bends towards justice. Like, he took the MLK quote, that is that. It's like, because we bend it that way. And so be a part of bending it that way.
Totally.
All right. Last long form, if you will.
Sure.
And then we will get into some rapid fire to wrap up. I'm going to go with this one. With long-term training clients, what are some ways you keep them engaged in training?
Yeah, I think it's similar to I can't even say the youth athletes. It's similar to all, this goes across all clients and athletes, is to get them competing. This is probably another thing that I could have added to the what have I learned, over the last 5 years, or what do I know now compared to 5 years ago, is that you will get so much more out of your athletes and clients if you can get them competing. We'll do, timed med ball throws for height. Like, obviously the higher you throw it, the longer it is. We'll do relay races at the end of an acceleration session. We'll do, team competitions where we keep track of points and things like that. And rather than just having, athletes run free sprints at the end of a session or run through a box drill, which there's a time and a place for all of it. If you can get them competing in some fashion where you are keeping score, and there's maybe even some sort of like reward, or call it a punishment, whether it's like force to climb or feed or whatever it may be. the level of buy-in is so much higher. And that goes along with long-term training clients, whether they are an elite athlete, a weekend warrior, whoever they are. If you can find ways to have them compete with either themselves or someone else in a group, I think that that's one of the best ways to keep them engaged. And then also tracking progress on things that they care about. I'll sometimes get clients that, come in, whether it's an adult client or whatever it may be, and you ask them their goals and they're like, well, I don't really have any. And I used to kind of just say, okay, yeah, no big deal. We'll just train. And now I really urge them, even if it takes them 4, 6, 8 weeks, whatever it may be, into training, to dig a little deeper and think, like, what matters to me? Is it something aesthetic? Great. Is it running a 5K in a faster time? Great. Is it, a strength number? Whatever it is, we need to find 1, 2, 3 things that really matter to them and track their progress over time so that they can see the progress that they've made, to stay engaged.
Yeah. I'm going to actually simplify this down to a really baseline level, which is my goal in every session is for people to walk out feeling better than when they walked in. Like, that could be because we did a regen session, or because I crushed them and they had that adrenaline hit or whatever it is, like the endorphins release, whatever it is.
Accomplishment.
Exactly. Like, who doesn't want to go to something that makes them feel good? And so all of those things that you talk about can be easily folded into that of like, yeah, I set a PR on my bench press or my squat or my deadlift or whatever today. But generally make it an enjoyable experience and let them feel success. And they're going to want to keep coming back because people like feeling good and feeling successful. So
yes, no doubt.
I will simplify my answer down to that very distilled thought. All right. Rapid fire time to close out.
Hey, let's
you
get
ready
after
for this? I'll let you go first on all of these, and I'll chase you behind and then follow up with the next question. All right. Favorite snack? Go.
Greek yogurt, homemade granola, and berries.
Mine is an apple bowl that Rachel introduced me to. It's apples, granola, some almond butter, and honey. It's amazing. Hypertrophy day or max strength day?
Hypertrophy. My body is beyond the days of max strength, Craig.
I would rather just lift heavy and do it 1 to 3 times and be done. I do not have the attention span for hypertrophy. Favorite exercise?
Oh, you know this one. You know what I'm going to say. We could say it at the same time. The barbell front rack rear foot elevated split squat.
It's
for
so
sure.
good.
That has everything.
It
has everything in it.
It does. I will go say hex bar deadlift though, because just that feeling of I just lifted a lot of weight. That's fun.
Yes.
I like that one.
All right.
Least favorite exercise.
Oh my gosh. Any upper body, any overhead pressing. I suck. I'm so weak.
I'm trying to think. I know there is one, and I feel like I've just blocked it. I've been trying to think about this since I wrote this question down 2 hours ago. I feel like I'm just mentally blocking something out, and I'm just gonna tweet it out or Instagram it out.
Yeah.
I just did this thing I hate it. I feel like anaerobic conditioning because you just feel like you're gonna die.
Yeah.
That's
fair enough.
That's not super fun. Speaking of favorite cardio,
do barbell complexes count?
Absolutely. That's a way you can do cardio.
100%. Yes, it will absolutely crush you, and it is my favorite.
That is good. I am a psycho. I actually love assault bikes. There are certain intervals that are terrible, but that feeling of just letting it rip for 10 seconds, I like that.
Yes, definition of psycho.
I feel like I'm probably going to be no longer welcome in my own home after that one. Hex bar, straight bar.
Straight. I've never been a hex bar girl.
Really?
It's just not it's just not my jam. In fact, I honestly, I use it with my athletes and clients. It's not my thing.
Okay. I obviously, as already mentioned, love the hex bar.
Yes.
Front squat or back squat?
Front. I mean, I probably years ago would have said back. I love the front squat now. I love it. Just my body type. I'm able to keep a more vertical torso. I love the extra ab or pillar work that comes with it. So currently I'd say front.
I waffle on this one. I think probably front. Although if I'm being really honest, heavy dumbbell split squat. Favorite med ball exercise?
Oh my gosh. I'm going to go with the reverse granny toss for distance. You kind of feel like
rip.
Superwoman as you're just chucking that thing over your head.
I don't have a space where I can do that, so that like wasn't even on my radar.
Yeah.
That's a great answer though. I love like a twisting med ball throw. Just like let the hip fire, let it come through. All right, best use. This is one that Rachel put on the list that I love. Best use of a 3-pound weight.
Oh my Lord, a doorstop? I don't know. Goodness gracious. I don't even know if I've seen a 3-pound dumbbell in years.
I work out of a PT clinic, so we got them all.
Yeah, right. Although we do have we have those 2.5 bullets that we call the bullets that used to go in power blocks, like the old school power blocks.
Oh, wow.
That are like, this big around and whatever. And gosh, those will crush you for like, I don't know, there's different terminology for everything, but like prone swimmers or like Ys, A's, C's. I mean, if you do those for 30 seconds, 2.5 pounds in each hand, you are crushed. So maybe I should start using 3-pound weights for that.
There you go. I was going to say upper back work, like external shoulder rotations or reverse flies. Those are my two favorite with those. Although I will say my clients get way more scared when I hand them a lightweight versus a heavyweight. They're like, oh God, what crazy shit is he going to have me do now?
That's how you know you're good. Love it.
The one thing you wish everyone trained more.
Oh my goodness. Oh, this is a hard one for me. I would say field stuff, field work. I love that. I know you and Rachel have been doing, I need to pick your brain on that. So it sounds so fun. And I've just seen it from a distance, but I think that it's something that's ignored in a lot of populations. And I think what you've been talking about a lot, the competitive side, I think is really easy to integrate into that side of things. Or that style of training. And so, I wish more people got the opportunity to experience that.
I agree. If you're in the Washington, D.C. area, field day will return in the spring when it's warm out. But yeah, I was...
You mean it's not like 75 and sunny there?
Nat, we made it this far. We've made it this far. I don't want to fight you in your Phoenix weather because I will lose. I'll tell. So your answer actually makes me change mine. I'll say what I was going to say is like foot and ankle strength. I think like the foot is incredibly ignored, and I think a lot of problems emanate from there. But I think actually more importantly, like sprinting, like how many people over 25, really over 22 sprint ever? And why would we spend the last, hopefully 3/4-ish, at least 2/3 of our lives not running as fast as we can when we do it all the time as kids? So I think sprinting is 100%. All right.
Yes.
You're reincarnated as a professional athlete. What sport position are you playing, or / position are you playing?
Yeah, 100% American football linebacker.
By the way, that's Natalie is Canadian, hence the clarification, American football.
Yeah.
Although as big football fans / soccer fans on this podcast, we approve.
Yeah, exactly. Linebacker. Gosh, I really can't think of a more fun position to play. Like you basically get to, this sounds horrible, but like hunt down people in the most aggressive but loving way, because you're not actually hunting them. You know what I'm saying? Right. But
there's a dominance that you're just like,
I think the like strategy behind it, the like primal aspect of it is just like awesome.
My answer is simply LeBron James for like actually many of the same reasons. Whatever position LeBron has played, I want to be him. I've always said if I could be one for a day, it'd be Russell Westbrook, because I want to, like 24-year-old Russell Westbrook, because I want to know what it's like to be that explosive. But like LeBron kind of is that still at age 37. He's in his 19th year. He's been in the NBA over half of his life, and he's still killing people. So LeBron James.
Insane.
All right, last one. We will wrap up our year-end / oops, it's the beginning of the year podcast with this. What's something you want to be better at by the end of this year?
Yeah. From a work standpoint, I would say we are lucky enough to get a bunch of fun sports science equipment into EXOS that we're going to start using for assessment, tracking, monitoring, guiding, programming, all that. And so really just finding a way to master that side of things. I was exposed to a lot of sports science at Louisville when I was doing my master's, but it's been a little bit since then that I've like had access to this style of equipment. So super excited about that. And then from a personal side, if you follow me on social media, you would have probably already seen this, but my word for 2022 is being intentional in all aspects of my life. So I want to be better at that. I want to be better at being intentional every day when I wake up in the morning, in terms of like how I spend my first 20 to 30 minutes, how I speak to people, how I show people I care about them, how I love on other people, how I donate my time, how I speak to myself and care for myself. So that's something that I have set out to be better at, and I'm going to do it, Craig.
She's going to do it. She's out here keeping the main thing, you might say.
Exactly. Yes.
Mine is work-wise, I want to grow this brand. And a lot of that might not actually be public facing. A lot of that I'm hoping is on like the mentoring and education side. That is something that I think we bring to the table that we are very capable at after doing, getting a little bit of a start of that in 2021. And I think that Chris and I can grow a lot in that area. And when I say grow, like, we can help the industry in focusing training in a lot of different places, whether it's gyms, boutique studios, whatever. So I would love to see that part grow. And then my personal is actually going to be like my own personal training. Like, I want to be more diligent with that. I had like certain things that I've wanted to do, and I wound up sacrificing them to do, whether it's because of work or like just, well, that workout, it's easier. Why don't I just go do that? It's like, no, I want to sprint.
Sure.
I want to sprint more this year. I want to play a lot more with like tempos and explosiveness. I felt my athleticism fall off the last couple of years, in part because like during the pandemic, things like pickup basketball that I used to play at least once a week, like that's gone away. And so getting back to feeling like an athlete, not just someone who lifts weights, which I think there is a difference. That's kind of my personal goal for 2022 on the training side. So
I love it.
What is something you want to be better at by the end of the year? Being an athlete. I want to be a better athlete at the age of 32. God, here we go.
I love this. Yes.
So that's it. That's the podcast. That's the mailbag. If you want to follow Natalie on Instagram, at Natalie Kollars, Kollars, Kollars. Nat, this was fantastic. Thanks so much for doing it.
So much fun. Yeah, so much fun. Thanks for the invite, and always fun to chat with you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in Phoenix in just a little while.
Yeah, that's an Easter egg for people that stuck around this long.
Yes.
Big things coming.